Well, it's Sunday, folks. That means it's time for a weekly update. Sorry, I ended up posting this on my personal page at first. Things are a little mixed up today. Would have been about almost, what would it be, 6 hours ago? Something like that. I was over at Staples, so I was looking at a dead man communicating with police. So normally I say happy Sunday, not as happy. But some of what went on this week in terms of successes, because there were some, other than the holidays, I hope everybody had good holidays, was we got notification of a victory around the CFAA. That's the mental health funding agreement that I've been discussing for a couple months now, probably 6 months now. Negotiations with the state had been a problem. The Association of Counties really was a spearhead in this. I wrote a couple articles that ran in, online, but also one or two that went into newspapers around the state about the interaction we were having with the state, the problems with what they were proposing. Nutshell, the state didn't want to guarantee the funding for what they were wanting us to do. They wanted us to take the overflow from the state hospital, and they did not want to guarantee we would be indemnified from the federal judgment that the state hospital is under right now. So for folks that don't know, state hospital is being fined $500 per day per person in excess of 7 days waiting to go to the hospital to be assessed to stand trial. What does that mean? If somebody commits a serious crime and they're found to need mental health assistance, not able to aid and assist in their own defense in court, then they go to the state hospital to see if they can be stabilized. Now, it's a necessary function, one, to get a fair trial, but also for the expeditious right to justice for not only the offender, but also the offended, the person harmed by that other individual's actions. The longer this delays, the longer it's taking for justice to be expedient. And that's a problem for obvious reasons. People deserve to have their crimes and those that commit crimes against them handled in a speedy manner. So what's ended up happening, the group of county councils with the Association of Counties have come back, said that there's a boilerplate that is acceptable to them, and we're waiting to see Coos County's specific copy so that we can check and make sure it is what the state said it would be. We also found out that we're going to get maybe 6 to 12 residential treatment beds. The announcement listed Coos or Curry. I'm inclined to believe it would be Coos, although they may break it out, who knows. But that's important because there were only 6 other counties that are receiving this. There are 36 counties in Oregon. We are the only coastal county receiving it, and we are one of only 2 counties not on the I-5 corridor receiving the funding. The other one is just north of the county, north of Bend. Not North Bend, but north of Bend. So that was another good achievement for ourselves this week. As it pertains to money, we are going into a new year. That means a new budget cycle. You'll have been hearing me and the other commissioners talk about funding this whole year leading up to now, how we get the funding to provide the services people need and then the ones they want. Been doing that in a number of ways. Unfortunately, or fortunately, as you may look at it, we're not the federal government. We can't just print more money and go into debt decade after decade. We're not the state government. We can't try and unilaterally raise your taxes. This is the transportation bill issue going on right now. We'll see where that goes. But beyond that, the people of Coos County have been clear they don't want to pay additional taxes. That came up. I think there were 3 attempts with the safety levy. It didn't go through. That is a non-starter. So what we've looked at is ways to mitigate liability. So that involves some repairs around the natural gas pipeline that feeds a number of our businesses. The county, I don't know if there's any others in Oregon that own a chunk of natural gas pipeline, but we do. Um, and then some other ways to deal with that. And then the CFAA that I've been talking about has been another mitigation issue, trying to avoid the state pushing its bills onto us and making sure they pay for what we do for them. We've got discussions going. The sheriff's office has come up with a couple things. One of those is the third floor of the jail is unutilized. It is an open space. It could be developed into something. Maybe this residential treatment facility type. For folks that don't know, a residential treatment facility, as being discussed, and as I've understood it from people that communicated with me, is similar to one that already exists in North Bend. If you didn't know it's in North Bend, that's good. But there's a site in North Bend that houses, I believe it was 4 people at a time. It is just a standard house, essentially. It's got kitchen and all the other stuff, but there's always somebody on site around to assist the individuals. And if I remember right, the door locks in the evening and reopens in the morning, because folks are severely mentally ill and need a little help there. And the objective is that the individuals stabilize so that they can move on to another setting, either longer term assisted care or independent living again. There are some folks just need time to stabilize. I had a client one time who had had a psychotic break. Nutshell, he had a very high paying job beforehand, 6 figures. His wife, mom, and child all died in one car accident, and the cheese slipped off his cracker. Once we got him stable again, living perfectly fine, high accomplishment individual, but he had ended up on the streets and in bad situations because it was just too much. Not that everyone in this facility will be in that circumstance, but that's a sense of what you might also see as far as people on the street. They've got stories. And other things, service export. So Curry County, we've collectively been talking with Curry County at different points in time about different opportunities. Coordinating around the jail came up at one point. That was not viable due to certain regulations and timeframes relating to people's rights. So that had to go by the wayside. We don't want to violate anybody's rights. But there are other areas, like Coos County now does its own septic inspections. Curry County would like us to do them there so that they can move away from having the state do them. We just started this year, so it's going to be a bit. But that's something that's on the table, where we would be able to use resources between the 2 counties, and instead of the state getting money, whatever they get for that service, things would stay within the Coos-Curry zone and work quicker and better, I think. So, and then also coordination between counties and cities. So planning departments in Bandon, North Bend, Coos Bay, and then the county have an IGA going on. Don't remember if it's with the other 2. I know with Bandon we've got a shared, what would it be, like a consortium of planning. It gives us more flexibility, gives everyone more flexibility for surges in development or slopes. You can be more effective that way. You've got more flex, you've got more bulk. It's a more stable way to function. And then the digitization of codes and records and that sort of thing, so that somebody that wants to develop can click on the property and see the pertinent codes instead of having to talk with folks in the planning department. They can self-service at their leisure. So we're looking at where we can be more efficient, avoid risk, and generate revenue. There's a number of other things on the table right now. Those are just some highlights that give an example of each. And the last bit, where I was earlier today, I was over at Staples picking up some office supplies, and when I came out, somebody was asking for help. They had a license plate number they were rattling off, pointed at a guy laying in a parking space, and asked if I could go check on him. They think he's been shot. I went over. He had definitely been shot. He was gone. How does that pair in with what I'm talking about? Earlier this week, I was critical of outside agencies. So right now we've got Turning Point coming in, but there have been other groups that come in that, as I see it, and I looked them up a little more because I caught some flack for having not looked them up as much as I could have. I maintain the same position. They look like some group that comes in to talk about talking. We all know how to talk. One of the folks that's organizing it called me something inappropriate earlier this week. It is not an example of somebody that is working on honestly wanting collaboration through talking. The rest of us know how to talk to each other. We know what's appropriate. You don't call each other slurs for the right. You don't call each other slurs for the left. You just talk about what is in front of you, what the issues are. For our community, some of the biggest issues are crime, obviously, drug abuse, generational drug abuse, the abnormal number of youth that skip from just clean to Schedule 1 drugs, hardcore drugs like meth. That was noted in a hospital report about 2020 that we have an abnormal incidence of that happening. How we talk about funding the services that address these things. Why do I talk about this in relation to the fellow that's passed away? Because talking about talking is not going to address why that man is dead. It's not going to address why someone else killed him. Yeah. We have to focus on the issues we have here. We've got enough problems, we don't need to import others. And we know how to talk to each other out here. We are a county that has been great things. And in some areas, we still are. We were once the largest timber exporter in the world, if I remember right, certainly in the United States. Our shipping was busy. That's gone. There's some talks about bringing some of it back, but it's not going to be to that extent, I don't believe. But it would still give us a role in the world again. We do have one of the top golf courses in the world in Coos County. We have one of the top RV camping sites in the country over off the Cape Arago. We have large events that come out here. We have things we're still very good at. The thing that hasn't gone well is dealing with drugs and crime. Sometimes people say that's throughout the country. That's true, but it's not a reason for us to be the worst. Oregon being a very low rank in many things. That is where I come from when I say I'm not interested in something. If it's not addressing the problems of Coos County, which honestly, we've got problems with dialogue locally, but we're not seeing crazy political assassinations like other areas. It's not like Minnesota where some people from their state Congress got assassinated. We don't have a Charlie Kirk situation here. We've had some minor incidents where people had to be removed from City Hall when I was on council because they couldn't conduct themselves appropriately. But by and large, that is not as big an issue for Coos County as is drugs, crime, and violent crime. So that's the end of the update. We had good things happen this week. It just kind of ended on a low note, unfortunately. And yeah, we'll move into this next week, and we'll keep going. Sounds like food might be ready. I'm going to bail out. Have a good one. Be safe.